Good afternoon. We are here, and once again, it is our great pleasure to be in your reality. We are listening to the noises. Do we have to have them?
No, we'll turn off the filter.
At least for a while, please let us have some silence. Can you hear us, everyone?
Yes.
All right, good. And when you are going to ask questions in the afternoon, please, no mumbling. Speak so everyone can hear what you are saying. That will make it more interesting for all concerned. So, now that we've gotten some particulars out of the way, welcome to an afternoon at the schoolhouse where we are going to further explore the theme of impeccable timing. And of course, what you have been discussing over the weekend would point to an understanding of time, impeccable timing. And there are different types of time, different cycles of time, different ways of counting time. Time is a liberator. It is a local custom as well, because the Anunnaki, in their timing, experience the passage of the now very differently than you experience the now. And in a future time that is ahead of you, let's say, many different nows or cycles are joining together. And you are in this, you've been in it for a few decades. There's usually a point where precision clicks. If you get the exact correct combination, such as in a locket. And these paths of earth time, celestial time, divine time, when they begin to conflict or to confront each other, where resolution is needed, this can shake your reality. And this is what's occurring on some level just now. So what does impeccable timing mean? It implies that there is a precision, an order, a perfection, an admiration for situations in time unfolding with a higher plan, support, unexpected weavings, flutters of significance. This is all what is implied in impeccable timing. It would be advisable for each of you to consider moving into a state such as this. Because you see, you've heard a domino effect. One domino hits another and they all start changing. And the energies that the planet's dealing with to create regime change, restructuring, there's a big agenda on the globalist level to create world government, except no one gets along. It's not like the early USA where there was a compelling desperation to create freedom, to move against something, the English crown, and even the early American visionaries. The story is that unknown visitors appeared amongst their midst to inspire them. Sound a little clever and familiar, yes? Unknown visitors could appear and do appear periodically to inspire the human domain. So the challenge is with embracing impeccable timing is at some potential point, perhaps this autumn, things will start moving very quickly of their own volition. the domino effect. And the globalists want to dismantle certain things in order to insert a global government, a, let's say, different way of people giving up their autonomy. There's been great push to dismantle the US Constitution. The timing is appropriate, absolutely. One way or another, you will have to review the values of your stated purpose come 2022, 2024. The reason being is that you will be in a Pluto return to the US Declaration of Independence. So all these ideas are up for certain rehabilitation, reconsideration. And eventually, soon, there will be an acceleration to push the tumbling forward. There will be forces that want to scare you, to have you beg, to be saved by world governments. Where's the government? Why aren't they here? What are those lazy people doing? Get the government in, get the government in. That's what they want you to beg for. And then once you get them in, they will then plow everything under. It's not the only probability, but it is a probability that some of the world leaders are being pushed to implement. They are being pushed by off-planetary forces. This is not a global government, a new world order. It's not a bunch of humans wanting this kind of organization. This is off-planet managerial processes that are being introduced to take away the freedoms and the renegade status that the human colony here on Earth has been free to explore for a number of millennia now. So these are important considerations. With focus, with concentration, you have great power. You have great power from nature. Nature is smart. You could say nature is a type of software. We've always said you exist in the program of nature, and that nature in and of itself is like a type of artificial intelligence, except it's not artificial, it is actual, and it houses life forms that reproduce through biological processes, not laboratories. So these are core issues of obviousness. They are going to come to the forefront of your own priorities to deal with. To be fair, you have some very big adjustments ahead. Many things that you take for granted may not be so easily accessible on a very basic level. Here in California, of course, you know you are dealing with extensive drought. You've come to the realization, many of you, that it is being artificially manipulated. Yet, these things are possible because people abdicate their own responsibility to living on Earth. And fame and fortune become more important than sweeping the stoop, mowing the lawn. And yesterday we covered very, very important to take care of the physical, biological being. So these are crucial issues at this time. When you demonstrate that you are responsible for your own well-being and the well-being of Earth, you are seeking a higher level of consciousness because you are demonstrating it. That does not mean you cannot play in the physical world. It means it cannot be your obsession and your only reference point. So that's a bit of review here. But we have some new people to join us, and people who were here yesterday. We had the evening to discuss, sleep, think, another discussion today. So we are interested now in hearing from you what you're questioning, putting together, some of your conclusions. We'd like to know how you feel about knowing what you know in these times? Let's have a good discussion this afternoon. Remember, others will listen to these CDs and they are greatly appreciative of your own disclosures and expressions. So let's turn it over to you. And who would like to begin this afternoon's discussion?
Jackie.
Who is it?
Jackie.
Jackie, welcome.
Hello, thank you. So when Barbara was speaking earlier, there was a moment when she was talking about crop circles that I got a very intense wave of deja vu. And I'm just very curious.
Say it again, please, when she was speaking about
the crop circles.
Crop circles.
I got a very intense wave of deja vu, and I was wondering if you could elaborate or explain on what deja vu is exactly.
What is deja vu?
Yes.
This is a French term, of course. Déjà vu, previous viewing. Sometimes déjà vu can technically mean from the day before. So it is an implication that you crossed or were triggered by a word, a sound, a smell, an event, and it opened something up in you that reminded you that you already knew about it, and you've been in a similar situation or you've experienced that exact moment before. Now sometimes, Jackie, when people feel as if they're reliving a moment, sometimes what occurs is that you are practicing about reality when you sleep. Everyone does. And you surf the various probabilities in the dream state. And you are wide-ranging. And then when you wake up, you're in one probable reality and then another. And sometimes when you are in one, you feel as if there's something familiar about it. And it's because you do study versions of the day, possible versions, while you sleep at night. It's so automatic that most of you remember snippets of dreams, or your dreams seem to be in one timeline. And yet in actuality, this is one of your psychic gifts. This is why sometimes the advice, or you say to yourself, I'm going to sleep on it. I cannot decide today, I'll sleep on it. Yes, it's an expression. And when you sleep, even without setting the intention, the body starts processing the various possibilities. This is why when you wake up in the morning, you are in a very clear, fresh, having just done a lot of research, and you make some of your very best decisions. If something is weighing on you, acknowledge it in the evening, and then simply say, I'd like to work out a solution, or I'd like to have some clarity of mind or greater ease on this situation. And you forget about it. When you wake up in the morning, check to say, oh yes, is there any answer about the situation? And that's a way, another way, that you can show yourself and work with yourself how, recognizing how much information you have inside. Who has a question, please?
Suzanne, I wanted to ask.
Who is it?
Suzanne.
Welcome. What's your question?
I was not here yesterday, and I have a question regarding the chemtrails, because I'm very affected by it. They make me sick.
Well, they make lots of people sick. You're just a bit more sensitive. So, few things. We did cover it, or our vehicle perhaps did. There's a very dark side to the chemtrails. And not only do they have the chemicals, barium, aluminium, and other tiny particles, they are also loaded with nanobots, tiny little itsy-bitsy devices that coalesce when you breathe them in, and they build antennas inside the body. And it is a way that those who are not strong can be weakened. The lungs represent grief. So if you are, for example, a person who is in some kind of grief, your lungs would automatically be weakened, and then you would be more susceptible to the effects of chemtrails. The antidote, Suzanne, that we were discussing yesterday, everyone is going to be facing health crises that are going to blow up in the next year. You must boost your immune system and find the foods, the methodologies to create a stronger immune system. We recommended a book yesterday called the Dictionary, Complete Dictionary of Ailments and Diseases. It has, you can look up sensitivity and lungs, and it would say to you, oversensitivity. A person who is not using their energy properly, afraid of taking power and claiming, so the energy is misdirected, so they are sensitive to things rather than using the power of the psychic to tune into things. It is a misdirection of energy, very common. Do not take it personally. You also have some genetic weakness in the body because the family, in your family, there is, as we read the frequency, we give you a little personal, but it applies to many people. There is a propensity in the genetic line to not get over grief, to find death when someone dies to be the end, and to feel as if life has ended. This is very common within the human domain. Again, the grief gets stored in the lungs, and then the whole concept of dying becomes a frightening experience, and this is how the Anunnaki and others control you. You are afraid of a natural process. Watch a flower. They don't freak out when their turn's over. There's a grace, the growing, the budding, the blossoming, the day in the sun, or the shade, or whatever. Also, with these chemtrails, the people who do breathe in these particles, which is all of you, if you are easily manipulated, then these antennas in the body could be used to remotely control your behavior. We mentioned yesterday that in 1976, patents were issued that involved remotely controlling human behavior. Now, obviously, if the patent was issued, it was demonstrated to have some sort of effectiveness. Today, 40, 50 years later, the effectiveness is how do you get people to want to be remote controlled? You can implant them, as Jose Delgado did, by putting a chip in a bull and having the bull charge him, and at the last second he pressed the electronic device and the bull came to a screeching halt because it was implanted with electrodes. So can you see how chemtrails then became a worldwide way of implanting people and then controlling them? You do have power over machines, electronics, consciousness, all things, but you have to kick into gear. How to boost the immune system? These are really important things. One of the biggest things that weakens your immune system is stress. What is stress? It is a word that everyone uses, you banter it around, but you have become as a people so used to living under stress that you don't recognize stress. But stress is, you have too many RPMs. And you're not taking care of the biological being. So you're running it into the ground with, we've said, electronic devices, Wi-Fi, bad food, but even those things can be overcome. But you don't want to stop. Many of you have forgotten the life of living in a hammock. That you get the job done and you are aimed for the hammock. You're going to nap and rest. You've forgotten how to rest. And the interesting thing is that you live in a time where even stores on all the corners have chairs that are so inexpensive to help you put your feet up. But you don't do it because it's the phone, it's the grandkids, it's the neighbor. You have become so fanatical in filling up your time that many of you would never in a million years think of not picking up the phone when it rang. You don't know what it's like. You are controlled by buttons and beeps, and if someone doesn't call you, you don't know how to hang out for an hour or two doing nothing, so you would fill it up by occupying yourself. You think this is being busy. This is creating stress. This weakens the immune system. And then again, as you are asking with chemtrails, you have not accepted your psychic sensitivity, Suzanne. Accept it, redirect it, study under someone to help you bring it forward, and you will strengthen what is giving you difficulty. And it is a good question and a general answer for many people. Who else has questions?
This is John.
Who is it?
John.
John, yes.
I'd like to know more about talking about the regime change. Who are the players?
About the regime change.
Yes, it's coming, and who are the players, and how is it going to be a change of just how things are done, or is it
Say it again. Is it
how things are going to be done, or who is in charge, and what are they in charge of?
all of it? So John is asking. He wants to know about regime change, referring to the Anunnaki's habit of living in divine time. That is their name for the 3,600-year cycle, versus Earth time, 365 years, and they meet and agree in celestial time. Celestial time is a time that is defined by the precessional cycle, and the changing of the precessional cycle, 1 degree every 72 years, after 30 72s, the new celestial time begins. And that means that technically the sun changes its position in the sky where it is on the horizon at the spring equinox. Now, as we were explaining yesterday, it's hard to draw a line in the sky, especially between constellations. And some constellations take up more room than others. And this often creates fights. Marduk says, well, it's my turn. I'm supposed to get 2,160 years. And so they fight about these things. So, yes, you are in regime change. Of that, there is no doubt. It's been touted for a while that you are going to be moving into the age of Aquarius, yes? So, what does that mean? It means that eventually, perhaps 100 years more, something, the vernal equinox will move from, let's say, Pisces into Aquarius. When it was Marduk's age, the age of Aries, 2,000 years BC, it would be about 4,000 years ago, the sun would rise in the sign of Aries at the vernal equinox. So Marduk fought for his age, and prior to his age, it was his uncle's age, Enlil, the age of the bull. Enlil's sign is the bull. And Enlil has also come to the Pleiades to create some problems there. What you must understand is that these regime change, these rulers, they have a wide range of territory. And they send ambassadors, they send princes and kinglings, and it's just as you have it on Earth, only in the cosmos. And it's lots of contention. So there's no specific time for regime change. None. It's impossible in terms of earthly. So this is why your G8s, G7s, whatever numbers they are playing with, your Bilderbergers, the different elitist so-called groups who make global decisions, they don't know what to do. Here's an example. So Marduk ran the Age of Aries, and the way he started the Age of Aries was, or the way he accepted it was his turn, is that his son and his cousin started a nuclear war, 2024 BC. It was a tit-for-tat, silly war, but it created a lot of nuclear destruction. Sinai was the main target, and parts of Mesopotamia, etc. Quite a few other areas that have been excluded, more into northern Africa. Lots was destroyed, lots. Lots had to be rebuilt. And so everyone surrendered. They said this must be the sign that it is Marduk's age. Then there was another age change, regime change, 2,000 years later approximately. Every 2,000 years they get revved up because they know it's coming within 100 years. Then it was the regime change, and Marduk did not want to give up power. So Marduk created another image of himself as the son who was sacrificed for the great father on the cross. You get the picture, yes? The cross, of course, being the planet Nibiru, and the contention of, it's my turn, I'm willing to die for my turn here, to be the princeling, the king of earth, the king of kings. It's all these expressions that have to do with Christianity are all Anunnaki tit for tat. So now what John is asking is, are you in regime change now once again? Yes. Whose turn is it? You've gone through Aries, you had Pisces. Pisces was water, Enki is water, yet Marduk snuck himself in there, Enlil and his family line, they want their turn, but it's not their turn. It's the water pourers Enki's turn. There's big fights over the stealing of other cousins and brothers' turns. But the rationale is, well, you go to that other colony up there. You don't have to be on Earth. You've been stationed here. It's beyond you now, but this is what's being played out. Will it be different? Yes, the Aquarian age is about it is technically about a more connection of the wider range of humanity, but the dark side of it will diminish your distinctions as individuals. Aquarius is not an individual sign, even though individuals may be quirky and weird and do weird stuff. It could be the age of Aquarius, the beginning of a lot of strange things being brought forward again that were very much in vogue during Atlantean times. It depends what humans want to do. Do you want to take ownership, finally? Can you manage your planet? Yes, you have the capabilities, but you must become 1,000 times more psychic, 100,000 times more psychic, and fair, and knowledgeable. These are some things to think about. Anything else, John?
It sounds like that Marduk had 3 turns if he gets the next one.
Well, let's say that he's had his turn and then he has infiltrated other turns. And you know how there's a saying, power corrupts, you get there, you don't want to retire from it, and no matter how much money you have, it's never enough.
Yes.
These issues are all being played out to the extreme. Extreme. And remember something. No matter who you think these Anunnaki players are, that's not who they are. We do our best to give you pictures of them. And sometimes we color our characters, some we approve of and some we don't. But we are simply giving you a storybook in oral capacity to trigger the pictures that are already in your DNA. There's much inside of you that's being made in order that if you give yourself time, the pictures will start to make sense from within. We'll move around and come back to that concept. Who has a question?
Yes, this is Catherine.
Catherine, yes.
It triggers something I've been wondering about, and that is what you have referred to as Enki's gift.
Enki's gift.
And when I think about impeccable timing, and listen, that we must be very close. And
it is very close. So, it's already activated.
Oh.
To some extent, but not in full blossom.
Yes.
Remember yesterday we were talking about some pretty wild subjects and we said, oh, here they come. Remember? You had a good laugh. The helicopter was coming over. And we said, fountain them, fountain them. Now, and everyone did it. They shot up a fountain of energy. It was quite funny. But you're not sure if you really did it. You see the difference? We know you did it because we know when we say, all right, close your eyes, picture this fountain up, close down, we have enough psychic energy to watch and see and feel you do this. You as people are still insecure, unsure. Enki's gift was a time-coded mechanism left in the DNA long ago. Because Enlil did not like the human experiment, he would have gotten rid of it and had it all redone. Enki and his sister have empathy, compassion. Enki plans ahead. What's 2,000, 10,000, 20,000 years to someone who's been around a million? It's a few weeks, you understand? You go away to another colony, you have a spa, you come back, everything's changed. Now, Enki's gift was put in certain DNAs as a fail-safe mechanism, that it could be activated, because Enki understood, and Ninmah as well, how much DNA was turned off. But still enough was on to give you an experience and to make you worthwhile, to make it worthwhile living in a human body. What Enki left was a code, a gift, that under proper circumstances, that would be triggered celestially or cosmically, especially by galactic center and the, let's say, roulette wheel of your solar system. That when the time was right, Enki and his sister, being nowhere near in vicinity, could start to open this type of activity. And it was set into motion slowly to open, and now it needs to pop, really pop, so that you all start to have really clear psychic understanding, so that you have strong knowings, and that you are guided day to day, not by cell phones and ridiculous applications, but by the inner coming online. You know it. You've heard the words. But as the pressure grows in the outside world and things get strange, really strange, this will pump up higher and higher. They are designed to coordinate together as Anunnaki reappear. Enki's gift unfolds. Does that explain the impeccable timing? Yet it is up to you people to be prepared, to be aware of your part and responsibility in the process. Anything else, Catherine?
Well, I will share one thing. I was inspired to pick up the book Earth, recently. It was the one I least read. I've read the others more than several times. And I flipped it open and it says, we were the ones that rearranged your DNA and now we're in a pickle. And I thought, wow, I didn't remember reading that when I first read Earth and putting a story together. And so, and then you've always said we are kin. That you are we and we are you on some level. And suddenly I'm sort of opening up to some new idea of something we all share, but I'm not sure what I'm wondering about. But I'm just sharing what I am wondering about.
It's good wondering. We've given you many clues over the years, so many that it is difficult to remember. And of late we have been teaching you about the visitors who have left lots of footprints, lots of evidence of infiltrating your world. We have said they are on our world as well. And yes, these Anunnaki have at times taken their own kind, recolonized our world to some extent, and all the things that we have told you about giants, and reptiles, and Anunnaki, and Pleiadians, and genetic engineering, it's all intertwined. What's the order? What's the meaning? Again, the logical mind says, if I could only connect these dots, it'll make sense. Some of it is not yet ready to be connected because you have not grown in awareness enough to comprehend. Yet you're so close, so close. So this is some good figuring. And it is true that we have, at various points in your development, interbred with you as Pleiadians to upgrade your DNA. It was part of some beings in the Pleiades break out from the Anunnaki Empire and to break the control of the Anunnaki by going and doing what our vehicle said to you this morning. The gods do not want the heavenlies mating with the earthlies. And yet they keep doing it, and it changes the genetic experiment. It changes what can and cannot be activated. That's worth some thinking about there. All right, who has a question?
Please, this is Paul.
Yes, Paul, welcome.
Thank you very much.
What are you realizing this weekend, Paul?
Well, I'm realizing that we are one of a group of races or civilizations that are occupying Earth.
Yes, and you are hybrid, meaning lots of mixture in the DNA.
And so I was wondering how many of these different races are intermingling our DNA for various purposes. Is it just one group, the Anunnakis, or is it several different groups experimenting, and the experiments are getting mixed and whatever? Is that the picture of it? Or?
Well, Earth has always been considered to be a genetic laboratory, the living library. And it is predicated on the idea that the library will keep reproducing with the proper environmental balance, and that the replication of life is the process of replication of life, meaning the fertility of the crossing of species to reproduce, is what perpetuates the availability of what's stored in the DNA. So as we've often said, it's not just genetics here. That's one part of the laboratory, to come here to get into the genetics to make life. This is what the Anunnaki did in the dark end of their Atlantean experiment. They raided the library and they made what are called abominations. They did things without permission. This has been going on a long, long time. It goes on in the cosmos. But sometimes these life forms that are abominations, they lose their vitality. They cannot reproduce. They become mules, so to speak. Sometimes they have long lives. Sometimes something else has to replicate them. The miracle of the human was that a combination found itself, rearranged its own autonomy after a while, and it started to flourish once again. If you were left alone, no Anunnaki infrastructure, religions, space mission controls, rebuilding the space portals and all this, if you were just humans on your own, no beliefs in gods and things of this nature, the environment would activate your DNA out of necessity. And you would then evolve into something of your own uniqueness. This is what is watched. But over the last 500,000 years, the Anunnaki, again, first came, according to their story, for gold. Then they started making workers. And truthfully, people, in the last 100 years, many people have been lifted off of Earth. Many people have disappeared. Many people of a scientific nature had mysterious deaths, gone, taken to the moon, Mars. There are people up there, fellow humans. And of course, they can see Earth. There's no way they're going to get back. So, what's the answer to all of this? Is not necessarily an answer. There's understanding that the picture of your world is in need of review. There are forces that want humans to make big leaps in understanding. Each of you, as you incorporate this picture of possibility, you do yourself and humankind a massive service, because you are willing to think in this capacity and not run out and get a gun and act against something, or feel you have to do something about it. You are doing something by knowing. So there's all manner of forces, and how many types of life forms are there? There have been many on the planet. And the big thing that they hide from you, Paul and others, is they're little peoples, much smaller than you, that look just like you. There are lots of people your size, of variation structure, the archaeological record that's hidden shows all manner of different skeletal craniums. The skeletons are essentially bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs, etc. Organs that are gone now, but the internal structure can be a little different. But most of the different life forms here would have a different cranial structure. What else do you want to know, Paul?
That brought up another question. The pineal gland is I understand that fluoride accumulates in the pineal and crystallizes and maybe slows down or stops its ability to perform. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's very accurate. Fluoride is a byproduct of the aluminium industry. It's toxic. It's sort of a throwaway kind of what we're going to do with it. And so someone came up with the idea that it would prevent cavities. Brush your teeth. You can use baking soda and drink lemon water, and you will alkalize everything and you'll have no cavities. You understand? It's cheaper and easier. So fluoride someone was given the idea, but it's really the bigger picture. The scientifics discovered, yes, it calcifies and closes down pineal. So stay away from fluoride if you can. But many things can be countered. It's a matter of willpower and immune system and lots of reducing of stress in your life. The more you reduce stress, the more you can reach Enki's gift. The busier you are, the more you are jumping around, running around, living in urban environment. You know, the urban environments really do limit your ability to go to deeper states of consciousness. You have cell towers, you have Wi-Fi everywhere, you have honking, you have all kinds of exhaust. And yesterday someone wanted to know about the agendas and pushing everyone into a dozen or so smart city megalopolis areas. Well, I know that with all the activity and craziness, it will shut people down, but they will trick them because even if they have to give them free coffee, so what? If we can keep you dumb and give you free coffee, this will be worth it. So again, you have to use your smarts. You are better in urban or rural environments, but you have more. There's going to be less support eventually down the road for rural living. The services that you take for granted today will be shut down. This is a possibility. Who else? Oh, let's go back to one more thing, Paul. The other very important thing to remember, didn't get emphasized so much, was that the Anunnaki have appeared on your world in great stature, very great stature. And some of their workers have very great stature. We are not talking stature of character, we are talking stature of skeleton. Big. Let's just say that someone's out there, you look to the horizon, and it's not the native people on their ponies holding their spears. It's giants, slowly walking across the land. And they are 15 feet tall. They are the short giants. 3 times the size of most of you. We can't picture 3 times the size. And the earth and her graveyards are full, all over, of skeletal remains of 18-footers. Very common, very, very common. We believe it was one of the Friedrichs in Germany who had a whole phalanx of personal guards in about 1500 Renaissance era. They were all 15 feet and larger, giants. That's only 500 years ago. So some of the buzz you were talking about earlier, there have been sightings in modern times of giants. People are finding footprints. There is deep concern on government, military levels of large beings coming out of the ground. The military troops have met some of these creatures in the Afghani wars, the Pakistani wars, the wars involving the old mountain areas, even from the unmountainous area. There were lots of portals and openings left in Iraq, Mesopotamia, if you knew where to go and what to do. To digress even further on this, but to tie it all together, you have a force called Isis, I-S-I-S. Isis, of course, was one of the goddesses of the Egyptian pantheon, again, Anunnaki, Enki. ISIS group now, they are an offshoot, of Al-Qaeda, Taliban, these kinds of things, US-supported terrorist groups. But they are going in to places, just as the Taliban did, and just as the Al-Qaedas did. And they are destroying records of Anunnaki civilization. Why would these groups methodically go by different names, yet keep going after the remnants of Anunnaki, Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian records? It's so that when the return occurs, the slate is wiped clean. By dissociating your minds and wowing you with stuff that you'll simply be mouth open, jaw open, catching flies. And there will be nothing to compare to say, look, here's their footprints. Is it going to be effective? No. No. To be truthful, you've smartened up. It's taken how long? Thousands and thousands of years for humans to reach this point of understanding. And don't bank on anyone saving you, remember that. However, the support to pull this off is unprecedented, because there is a danger that is growing all over the cosmos because of this Anunnaki psychosis. Who has a question?
This
Yes.
is Cass.
Who is it?
This is Cass.
Cass, yes, welcome.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you for all the tools that you've passed on over the years on the CDs.
It's our pleasure, and if you apply these tools, then give yourself an A+.
It's been remarkable.
Yes, our teachers like to listen when we get a little praise here and there, because we too have to pass tests. We have others that help us understand. We had to learn how to work with you and what to give you. So what's your question, Cass?
My question is about the death portal. I come from a part of the country where there is a law that allows physician-assisted suicide. And
There's a lot of
physician-assisted suicide.
physician-assisted suicide. Would that be Oregon?
Yes.
Right.
And my question is, when people choose that, does that affect their soul growth? Do they have to come back and redo that whole...
It's a very good question. Now, we'll give you some background on this. When the Anunnakis first starting some of their genetic experiments hundreds of thousands of years ago, they couldn't get the spirit of beings to animate the life forms. And then when the spirit would come in some of their cloned life forms, remember, you can make a clone, but something's got to activate it. When people die, the life force leaves, the blood's still there, but there's nothing to turn the engine on. You get it? So they needed beings to turn the engine on of these clones they were making. They finally figured it out to get some of the beings to come in. The beings would come in, and the beings would be there for a while, and they'd say, this is no fun. And they started suiciding. This isn't fun. Why are we in this? We're trapped in these Anunnaki dead-end bodies. So they started at one point in the genetic experimentation. The Anunnakis had to deal with their genetic experiments self-annihilating. It panicked them. Every experiment for a long time would self-annihilate, self-destroy. Hence, the great forbidden stricture of never commit suicide, never take your life. Because if the beings kept taking their lives, the Anunnaki couldn't get workers. You follow? You see how one little something translates to something else? Now, is it a good idea to say, you know, my lover doesn't love me anymore, I got fired from my job, well, I live again and again, I think I'll just end it now. I'll shoot for another body in a few weeks. First of all, you have emotional connections, and it's the pain that you cause one another when you suicide. When children predecease their parents because they can't figure out how to cope and live and either commit suicide or exit the planet, it's devastating, devastating, emotionally abandoning to those who are there. Yet you put your pets and animals down with effortless grace and ease, even though you may not want to put Fluffy to sleep. Fluffy is suffering, and you rise to the level of compassion rather than have Fluffy go through 5 more days of dragging its body around. So this is going to be a big question. When to hold them and when to fold them. When is it okay to create assisted exit? Is it punishable? It's not punished, but if you are going to make a habit of doing this, it's going to be not so good. But if you are a person suffering, really very, very bad suffering, what you have forgotten how to do is to leave of your own volition. Some of the Anunnaki experiments, their suicide was to leave by their own volition. They didn't slit their wrists or take medications. They said, we're out there. At one time, it was much easier for humans to will their spirit out. Of course, this became a great threat for those who could do it. Women were called witches, men were called warlocks. If they could bilocate, if they could OOB, or if they could say, you think you are going to torture me? Go for it, I'm finished. It was a fail-safe ability if you needed it. Do you understand? Rather than to be destroyed or be stuck or be tortured, the body is built as a built-in, what would you call it, a parachute exit doorway, that if you knew how to use it, you could extricate yourself in time of difficulty. Your struggles with dying show how far you have dissociated yourself with knowing how to use the biological computer that you are. Yet you are closing the gap, and in the next few years, the discoveries that you can make are unprecedented. Do your best to live with grace. Does that help you, Cass?
Yes, thank you.
Good. People choose all different kinds of things. All right, who has a question?
Jen? Jen?
Jen?
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. Could you talk about the CERN collider and what does that...
The CERN collider.
Yeah, what is that really meant for? I mean, it's...
But settle down, people. As soon as someone starts talking, everyone shuffles, and then her voice drops, and so she's wanting to know about the actually called a large, it's called the Hadron Particle Collider, and it is located, Large Particle Collider is located in CERN, C-E-R-N, Switzerland. It is an underground facility, and they are basically accelerating particles into phenomenal speeds to see if this type of particle collision and speeds around these racetracks of electrons, if they could open wormholes, and wormholes are a form of black hole through which time can collapse. It is a new type of understanding of transporting across space, where you don't go from here to there by any other means but a collapsing of time in a tunnel. Historically speaking, this type of travel, these open portals, which were often indicated that they were within vicinity on the planet when spirals were drawn or put in stone. Spirals indicate a time portal or a black hole possibility, because the spiral turns everything around and allows openings. Hence, in CERN, they are building a racetrack that is like a spiral. Now, it's very dangerous. What's really going on? Some Anunnaki are using CERN to transport things from here to there, and there to here. Figure it out. It's gotten out of control, as it has other places on the planet when they were doing mini versions. You've heard that there were problems down the road years ago with mechanical shenanigans at the tip of the Long Island in New York. We were there this summer. There were questions raised. Are there Anunnaki artifacts and devices left, still buried on the Long Island? We said absolutely. Military has built empty space over it, or graveyards, so no one will get through. Sometimes things lay dormant for a long time. Remember, the Anunnaki have the ability to utilize stone in a capacity that today you use semiconductors, capacitors, chips, things of this nature. The Anus have a technology. They use the silica within the stone. Hence the history of crystals, or something that they called maize or maize. So the structures that they have left, abandoned on the planet, many of these structures are humming now. They're coming to life. They can be reactivated by inaudible sound that can be sent from orbiting homes that are between here and the moon. And why don't you see them? Why don't astronomers see them? It's all given away in the fictionalized movies and TV shows. They are cloaked. A hologram is projected over a spacecraft, and the hologram would come from inside the craft, and the craft would just disguise itself with stars. And when you looked up, you would just see space and stars. You are easily tricked. This is why you must become more psychic. That's why you must embrace Enki's gift. Who else? Rudy, yes.
Yeah, that was interesting you said that, because in that Malaysian flight that went down, it was all the scientists that were headed toward China with I don't know how many, 15 at least, with the technology in their heads and the plans for the cloaking of planes.
Yes, and before they left, they did some silly things about patents, etc. But that's the point, yes. Who else?
Hi, Pete. It's Patricia.
Patricia, yes, welcome.
Thanks. So I'm listening all this time about the Anunnaki in the stories. They sound a little bit like pirates.
Like pirates?
You know, going around and causing pillage and trouble and taking whatever they want and leaving messes.
It's a way of looking at it. Think of them as cosmic buccaneers. They have to go from Mars to the moon and back to Nibiru, and then they have to call up Dad, Anu, with their devices. One of their main telephones was the Ark of the Covenant. A radioactive telephone, a radioactive sender and receiver that was run on like a small mini nuke. Please continue.
Saying that they have this planet that's also a spaceship. You've mentioned different times calling it a spaceship, they call it a planet. But it always goes in the same trajectory, the same big giant track. As I listening, and now they're coming back, and now we're going to have all this trouble again. If we fight them, we just make it continue. But one of the options, creating a parallel reality where we just never mind about them, so what? Make a mess in your own space.
Now listen to this. There is no fighting them from the humans versus the Anus. What they do is they get you to fight each other. Because one Anu will say, well, the Ruskies are mine. And the other one will say, well, I am managing the US military. And they want, the way they play their game is which Anu can get the earthly based greatest military might. And then to create war games that are very real in your terms, that are steeped in your ancestral lineage. What does war do? It destabilizes families, it creates tragedy, it creates dissociation, and it creates a traumatized DNA. Each of you have this, because there's not a one of you here who has not had a warrior ancestor who's had to go and deal with blood, guts, and dissociation and killing. In some way, this is how the Anunnaki keep you trapped. To outdo the fighting, the armaments, is to outplay their game. But you must raise your vibration high enough that you see their problem, that you become smarter than them. Not in terms of technology. You are thousands of years behind them in terms of technological wow. And you are too naive on being wowed by technology. You are kids. What you have going for you is the compassion of the human heart, which the Anunnaki, many of them miss, and the understanding of how stuck they are. And just as you would come across some people that you would take the time to help them get unstuck because they are wounded and they are sore and they need education. You are like lost children who have the smarts to unplug this entire complex. Think about it, folks. Do you think that we would already be closing in on 30 years of this? If it wasn't of the utmost importance to prep you, to set you up, to get you ready to do what some of you will pull off? Think about it. Really think about it. Who else has a question? Oh, Patricia, did we complete? Comment.
For now.
All right, good.
Pieces of Lauren.
Oh, that sounded like too tiny.
Oh, sorry. This is Lauren.
All right, no mousy voices.
Yes, ma'am. So, talk about portal. I was told that near Santa Barbara there's this portal called point conception that the Shumas used.
Say it again. You were told.
That near point conception in Near Santa Barbara.
In the what?
Near Santa Barbara.
Yes, Santa Barbara.
There's a portal called Point Conception.
Point Conception. It is a place on the coast.
Yes.
It is a military point, yes?
Yes, but I was told that the Shumash use that as a portal to go to...
Who use it?
The Shumash Indians.
All right.
Use it to go to the Milky Way galaxy. Is there any truth to that?
Well, first of all, you live in the Milky Way galaxy, so before you ask questions, it's best to know your celestial geography. And whoever's dropping things, hold on to stuff, keep it down. It's going to be over with soon. Just keep it quiet. You're like kids getting too excited. You live in the Milky Way galaxy. Do the Chumash Indians use a portal to explore the Milky Way galaxy, to go up into the heavens? There's a high probability, yes. The native peoples, not so much now because they've been westernized. And your world is full of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi and the wireless technologies prevents a lot of human volition. The Wi-Fi is like a prism. There's a frequency prism. And it's limiting a lot of coming and going that would naturally occur by human ability. Native peoples who slept on the ground, who looked at the sky, a long time ago, they had lots of abilities to shift their shape, to go up in the heavens, lots and lots. But the more you have been indoctrinated to wires, electricity, and moving pictures, they've lost these abilities. As we look at these Indians, it's a dream. There's no one, it appears that they are doing it today. All right? Good. Who else has questions?
Carolyn?
Who is it?
Carolyn.
Carolyn, welcome, loud and clear.
Are there ways you can help?
They cannot hear you in the back.
Are there ways that you can recommend to help us develop our psychic abilities?
Everything we've been telling you this weekend is all aimed to develop your psychic abilities. Get rid of the electronics, stop watching moving pictures, de-stress, put your feet up, and talk with the squirrels. It sounds, and you have permission to do it.
Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, Louis again.
Yes, Louis.
No, that was really interesting about the Chumash Indians, because I thought I read in Sitchin that the word shamash was their word for a deity or for a spaceport. You would call that?
Utu, who is the twin brother of Inanna, also is called Shumash. Utu is considered to be on the Enlil line. Shumash was the eagle, and he was the head at one time on the Enlil line. Enlil is Space Command. He was head of the Eagles, or the Igigi, or the workers on Mars. Eventually Marduk replaced it, and Mars was named after him, and let's say Shumash became secondary. But he was head cosmonaut at one time, in charge of the Eagles who could go into space. So you can see obviously some of these Anunnaki were working with the native peoples. The native peoples slept on the ground. They looked up at the sky. They understood the star people. They saw the coming and going. They saw ships land. This is where the star beings, the Kachinas, all of their stories came. Some were taken up for a ride. Some were shown how to use the energy to do it, because they were more naturally entrained. Does this all make sense?
Yes.
Good. You'll find these connections throughout many of the old peoples who lived close to the land. Who else?
Jesus, Jared.
Jared, yes, welcome.
Thank you. I'm curious, on September 22nd and 23rd, the gamma rays that we're going to receive, is that related to Anki's gift, or is that something completely different?
What gamma rays are you going to receive?
Is my understanding, okay. Is my understanding on the 23rd...
Where is this understanding coming from?
Where did I find it?
On the internet, of course.
Yes.
Mayfax.
Yeah.
So gamma rays, they are pulses of high energy. Information travels on gamma rays, but we think it's very strange that they're already predicting what gamma rays you are going to get when it's not how it works. Not necessarily. Gamma rays are the high end of the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves, microwaves being the low end. So where a radio wave would have only X amount of data carrying to it, it would be long and slow, like a rolling hill. Gamma wave at the opposite end would be high intensity, jam-packed, full of data. Gamma rays pass through everything, and could, if you do get a gamma ray burst, which they're not really predictable, they usually just burst out. We hear the burst there, that's good. And the scientifics have been boggled for a long time, because many of these gamma rays are sent with a certain periodicity from the galactic center. So, and the sun, your sun, will send you gamma rays. If your sun has a gamma ray signal burst, it's going to be a day and a half before the coronal mass ejection particles will reach Earth. But as soon as the sun would burst, the non-locality of space would be that the message would instantly receive you, yet in another time frame it would take a day and a half to get here. All of these time frames are real, and they all operate simultaneously. So around the 22nd and the 23rd and the 24th, it's some big predictions. The next full moon is the 27th. It will bring to culmination and greater clarity what got started yesterday, today. The 23rd is the equinox. The autumn equinox and the spring equinox is characterized by the sun, the solar orb, which is a deliverer often of gamma bursts, being directly over the equator, meaning these 2 times of year, the entire Earth has an equal amount of daylight and darkness. This creates a reset button in the DNA to rebalance in all life forms this equality of light and darkness. And then you have the globalist getting things ready, and you have the Pope coming to deliver things. People, there's lots going on. Enki's gift is not necessarily being transmitted on gamma ray bursts. It's in activation, but all kinds of things from the heaven can lift you up and take you further and further. September 19th, we believe, is the day, or right day before, day after, Saturn leaves Scorpio, moves into Sagittarius, and the real stuff begins to occur. If you have planets or things in your chart, 29 Scorpio, 0 degrees Sag, you are in for some major life lessons, turning the corner on a whole new way of looking at things, endings, new beginnings. Stay grounded, have common sense. When you know and hear about gamma rays, know that information is coming and you can receive it. Take time off to catch the wave. It's really important. All right, we went over the beeper there, and we don't want to go too far because then you had a good day here and there's not too much to chop out. And, our vehicle still has to sit and edit and make this doable. In conclusion, use your mind. Express your gratitude. Ask the living library and all of its life force, especially the ones you can't see, to become allies with you to restore the natural functions of the seasons and the elements and the creatures. And then by making this a priority, you'll see other forces will start to follow. It seems miraculous to write down retire 2010 and then to get a pink slip in 2010. But it is not. This is the abracadabra of how it works. Abracadabra means I create as I speak. Remember that. Create something so good that you are even impressed yourself by your brilliance. It's been our great pleasure, dear friends. Good afternoon.
Thank you.